Global sales of fully electric and plug-in hybrids hit a record 2.1 million units in September.
It was driven by continued strong demand in China, accounting for about two-thirds of the total sales. North America also saw record purchases as US buyers moved to secure government incentives before they expired.
Well, let's talk to Daniel Harrison, who's a car industry analyst. Daniel, welcome to the programme. So global EV sales hitting this record 2.1 million units in September. That is up 26% year on year. What's driving this increase in demand?
Thanks for having me on. I think fundamentally it's because of incentives and subsidies being implemented around the world. We know, for example, that the majority of these sales, about two-thirds of them, are coming from China. They have a very strong state-led subsidies that go towards their electric vehicle companies to build the supply chains to make these electric vehicles possible. And in the West, you have a range of purchase incentives, for example, in Europe, in the UK, in Germany. And in the US, there's a federal tax credit that's just expired that has, in part, led to this spike in sales. So that's the primary reason. It's very much a subsidy-driven sector right at the moment.
China accounted for roughly two-thirds of all global EV sales. What factors, I wonder, make China so successful in scaling both production and buying adoption?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's fundamentally because they have a different economic model. It's very much state-led subsidies, and they've invested billions of dollars or the equivalent into Chinese yuan to build that supply chain, and they've done it at enormous scale. There's this phrase, go big or go home, and that's what they've done. They've built the battery factories. They dominate the supply chain for the minerals that go into those batteries. And of course, they've built a huge number of car companies that produce these EVs, sometimes at cost or even below cost, because of those government subsidies. And hence they're a net exporter of EVs and are trying to push them into Europe and other markets. So that's the key. They've done it at scale. They've got the economies of scale that brings down the price. And EVs are typically costing around 30 to 40% production-wise compared to production in the West. So that's the key cost advantage that they have.
Daniel, when you report on European EV purchases, range anxiety is what often drives those concerns. China planning to build 26 million charging facilities by the year 2027, I think effectively doubling capacity. I wonder how important is that infrastructure expansion, not the car industry, but the infrastructure expansion to sustaining this EV growth?
Absolutely. The supporting infrastructure to charge the vehicles is a vital component. We've done surveys, in fact, that show that's one of the top three constraints when consumers try and consider purchasing an EV. And what's noticeable in the West is the monumental failure of private companies to invest in it, because they don't want to invest until there's demand. So it's a very chicken and egg situation. You compare that to China, again, a state-led approach where they build the infrastructure as and when it's needed, in advance of knowing that that's the end goal. So it's a market approach versus a state-led approach. That's fundamentally what's different there. And in this case, the Chinese approach is winning.
Daniel, good to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the programme. Daniel Harrison, the car industry analyst.